Hello, and thanks for joining me on another edition of Into the Hollywoods with Stewart Strauss. This is a point of the Sonny Michael show where Sonny and John, Stencil Jazz, and their guest get to take a break while I sit in this room by myself and take over the airwaves for a few minutes. I get a chance to tell you a story that might pertain to one of my podcasts, and that's Into the Woods with Stewart Strauss. And this story is all about chance and circumstance. I got to meet one of my favorite musical icons, and that would be Joni Mitchell, and again, just by chance. It was the summer of 1971. My family, including my younger sisters and my mom and dad, were getting ready to take a camping vacation going from Los Angeles to Western Canada. It was going to take a while, and they were going to see all the sights. Now, I was supposed to go with them. A friend of mine, David Weinstein, was going to come along, but several days before we were going to leave, Dave and I were on the beach in Santa Barbara visiting a couple girls we'd met earlier, and one of those two girls had a horse that she kept in stables on the beach just north of Santa Barbara. So we went there, and it was beautiful, and she was riding her horse on the beach, and then offered to let me ride her horse. And I'd ridden stable horses, I'd ridden on a ranch a time or two, so I felt pretty confident as long as I was on a saddle and had reins and stirrups, and I'd be fine. But this horse didn't have any of that. This girl rode bareback, other than maybe something to hold her back a little bit. But meanwhile, I thought, hey, I'm young, I'm macho, so excuse the pun. Drum roll, please. I jumped on it. So I'm on her horse, and we're walking along the beach, feeling fine. Now we start to trot a little bit, still just hanging right in there, feeling good. And now we start to gallop, and the horse wants to go faster and faster and faster. And I start bouncing up and down the faster the horse is going, and I start bouncing off to the side. And now I grab onto the horse's mane and tail, and I'm just hanging on for dear life. And as I go riding by my friends on the beach, they start applauding. They think I'm doing a trick. I wasn't, And a few seconds later, I couldn't hold on anymore. I fell into this cement-like sand, broke my left wrist, which of course spoiled the party instantly. They rushed me off to the nearest ER, where they reset my wrist and put me in a cast, and told me I should not leave town until I had a chance to see a local doctor back in LA a week or two later. Now my parents are ready to go, and my dad only has so many days blocked off for vacation. So the plan was David and myself were going to fly from Los Angeles International Airport to Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada, and then meet my family once they arrived, which would be several days later. Now, I'd met a couple girls earlier that summer in Los Angeles that lived in Vancouver, so this was a perfect plan. We got to hang out with them, get to go see the sights, and just loved it, had a great time. But when Dave and I arrived at LAX, we're in the terminal waiting for our plane, and who walks in but Joni Mitchell? She's wearing this long, beautiful dress, flowing blonde hair, carrying a guitar case, and looking like the vision of the perfect California woman. And I was enamored. Now, I'd seen Joni 2 years earlier when she opened for Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young at one of their very first shows in Los Angeles at the Greek Theater, which is an open-air amphitheater, a great place to see a show. And Joni just stole my heart that night. Now, I heard Blue a year earlier when a girlfriend named Sue Gould had played the album for me from beginning to end, and I fell in love with her immediately, both Sue and Joni. But getting to see Joni live a year later was heaven. She stole the show for me, she stole my heart, and I've been a fan ever since. So here it is 2 years later, and now I'm standing 8 to 12 feet away from her. Now, at this point, I'd met a lot of people by the time I was 19. But when I got in front of Joni Mitchell, I was silent. I just couldn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. So I thought, okay, I'll see her on the plane and ask her to sign my cast. Brand new cast, by the way, shiny and white and up to here from here, so it's covering my arm. No one signed it yet, and, it's fresh. So we didn't see Joni on the plane. She was in first class. We were in middle class towards the back. So the next time we see her, we're in line at customs once we're in Canada, in Vancouver, and she's quite a few people in front of us. But as she was finishing, I figured it's now or never. So as she's kind of crossing back, and we're still in line at that point, I go over, or maybe I left the line, and I asked her if she would sign my cast. And she was more than happy to do that. She had a marker, and with her beautiful handwriting, she signed it from here to here, and I got to show that off everywhere. So I was totally elated and thankful, but the customs officials were not. They came and took her back into an office and started all over again, inspected her bags, probably interrogated her, suspecting that I passed her something illegal. Well, this is 50 years later, folks. I didn't pass her anything. I was just an adoring fan who wanted an autograph on her fresh cast, and just to tell her how much I liked her anyway, So she was detained, I would say, for what felt like an hour. I'm pretty sure it was an hour. And we're all now, moving along a little bit, and I see her again. She's been released, And I went to apologize to her, but she would have no part of it. She was upset, and I don't blame her. She was detained and everything else. That wasn't really cool. So, but I still feel, I'm sorry, Joni, but hey, I had her signature that I got to show off everywhere that summer. And I always kept my, wrist my arm out of the water, plastic bag over in the shower and in streams and, hot springs and all kinds of cool places. So that's something I'd never forget. Now let's move forward about 3 years, 1974, back in LA. One of my oldest friends, who is an extraordinary musician by the name of Dan Sawyer, is going to be playing guitar with Tom Scott and the LA Express. Now they're already making a pretty big wave in the jazz rock world. And they're also now the band that's on Court and Spark, at least the nucleus of that band. So here's my buddy Dan replacing, at least for the evening, Robin Ford, another fantastic guitar player who's had a great career. Needless to say, Robin is his own man, but he's played with Miles Davis and so many others. Anyhow, it's an opportunity at this point for me to hang out with Dan, meet Robin, who came by to say hi and then sit in. And that was during a break. Now they're into the second set, and deep into the set, I notice everybody, including myself, just our heads turned to the left towards the rear exit where it's not lit up. It's a small hallway, but everyone's heads went that way, and there's Joni Mitchell just walked in the door. No announcements, no spotlights. There are bands in the middle of a song, and there's Joni, and she just had that kind of power, just that magnetism, not even trying. And something pretty special you don't see very often in life. But so that was that. Now the next break, I'm out back with Dan, hanging out with Robin Ford and Tom Scott and the band, basically. And here's Joni, who came to visit, and also see John Guerin, the drummer in the band, who was her boyfriend at the time, also the subject of her song Free Man in Paris, which is on Court and Spark. So I got to, hang with Joni a little bit right there, much more casual, 2, 3 years later. And I told her the story, reminded her of it. She had a laugh, but vaguely remembered it, if at all. I mean, it was a blip on her radar, where for me, it was something, here I'm telling you with pretty vivid detail, 50 years later, because it meant that much to me as a fan. So, got to hang with her again. That's the second time. I also got to see 2 of those shows during the tour for Court and Spark, where they recorded Miles of Aisles, and that was recorded at the Universal Amphitheater when it was an open air amphitheater. And I was there for one of those shows, and also a show at the Anaheim Convention Center. And very valued memories as a musician, as a songwriter, as a fan, as a DJ. Joni has always been part of whatever I've done, because she is one of those influences on me, just like Jeff Beck and Jimi Hendrix and Stephen Stills are, and many others. But Joni is right at the top. So I hope you've enjoyed this story. I hope you'll check out my podcast, Into the Woods with Stewart Strauss, and my new album, which is coming out, called Precipice of Dismay. Now, meanwhile, I hear John and Sonny's voices behind me. They keep me in this little locked area, but they give me a t-shirt to wear and a cup of coffee. So I'm a happy camper. Sonny, back to you. And thanks, folks.